Awesome job you guys did yesterday with that business connection. I had a great time. I've never really had a booth there before, but you know, I've always gone, you know, as a hanger-on or somebody, you know, work for a hospital or something that would go there. And man, as a business owner, I had so many great contacts yesterday, and I really didn't move. I stayed at my booth the whole time. And I saw some of the bag ladies, but I didn't see a whole lot. Most of the interactions I had were real constructive, and so I enjoyed it. I appreciate very much you guys going all the trouble to put that.
Most of the bag ladies need your services too. I'm sure of that.
That's probably right. I want to introduce Tricia Davis. I asked her to come today. Tricia is, you know, she's a pretty skilled, pretty multifaceted girl. She's a physical therapist assistant that I have the privilege of working with. She's also a pretty accomplished athlete. She's a triathlete. She's not doing any of that stuff right now, but she won the Redman Ironman contest in Oklahoma City a few years back.
Wow.
Has even competed in Hawaii at their Ironman competition. So she knows her stuff. I think Becky, she recognized her. She teaches some body combat classes at Gold's.
I nearly died.
Kind of been a,
I nearly died in that class.
Yeah, I've only done a
I
handful of
thought
those
your Tammy
myself.
Zahner was a triathlete.
But she's pretty sharp. I've been trying to twist her arm and kind of get her engaged with this iPod stuff for some time too. So I invited her to come today and see if I could intrigue her a little bit more and expose her to you guys, because she's gonna have a real good, you know, experience hanging around you people. Want to talk a little bit about principles of exercise today, and I'll start off kind of where Robin left off last month. I thought she did a real good job of talking about how, you know, the real focus is just to engage in some kind of physical activity, not to get all, you know, technological and have to, you know, do this real regimented exercise program. As activity is the thing we want to drive home, and I think she did a pretty good job of that. And so I'm going to start off where she did last time, and that is at fitness. Because really, that's what we're after. We want everybody to have, you know, an adequate level of fitness that will allow them to do three things really. Carry out daily tasks with vigor and alertness and not undue fatigue. So, you know, we don't want the small things in life just to wipe us out. We want to have that capacity. And then we want to be able to participate in leisure activities, leisure pursuits, without it wiping us out. And then without always becoming, you know, a weekend warrior, we injure ourselves, you know, because we engage in something we haven't done in a while. And then the final thing is we want to have the physical capacity to manage emergency situations. And they don't always have to be medical emergencies. They could be things like, you know, you got a flat tire, but you have the ability to kind of manage that yourself. What happens if you run out of gas and you got to walk a mile or 2 or 10, you know? There's some people that are going to lay down and die if that happens. So we want you know, I guess a certain level of physical fitness that would just allow us to engage in life and maximize, you know, the life quality. So that's kind of where I'm going for. The problem is that's the goal. Exercise is the means. And it used to be that, you know, exercise is kind of a new concept. It used to be we didn't have to exercise because we worked, right? We've talked about that quite a bit, about how, you know, because of the Industrial Revolution and all the technological advances, it's kind of leached all the physical activity out of our daily lives. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but, you know, I think a recent study showed that the average adult sits about 14 hours a day now. And that's not counting sleep time, that's during the day. So, exercise, you know, if you talk to somebody in 1900 about, you know, what do you do for exercise, they'd look at you cross-eyed and they'd say, I work for exercise. But we had to create exercise. We had to create an excuse to engage in some physical activity. Do y'all remember what the definition of sedentary lifestyle was?
Me?
I didn't hear you.
Do you remember what the definition of sedentary lifestyle was?
If you don't exercise at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes or an hour?
30 minutes.
30 minutes at a not vigorous, average.
Moderate.
Moderate, that's the word.
Man, I'm impressed. And for 3 months.
For 3 months.
And if you can't say that, then you're considered sedentary, according to the American Heart Association and a number of other bodies. So, you know, that's pretty significant, because really when you think about that, that's not a lot of activity. In fact, I kind of added it up, and if you're awake 16 hours a day, and you do just that, That's about 1% of the time that you're awake that you're engaged in physical activity. So at least moderate level activity. So, here in a minute when I ask you whether or not you're sedentary or not, I would encourage you to interpret that very conservatively, because when you think about it, even if we're doing the bare minimum and we're not sedentary, we're barely getting over 1% of our daily, of our waking hours are spent doing something physical. We're not chopping wood or rendering soap anymore. I know it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, and then, another kind of hit on exercise is that a lot of times it's kind of associated with being an athlete. And people who aren't athletes, they think, why do I need to exercise? I don't do anything that's, I don't participate in some kind of competitive athletic event or anything. So, I just kind of want to get the bad things about exercise out of the way, because the truth of the matter is we're going to have to exercise and get some kind of physical activity in order to reap the benefits that come along with physical activity. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here in a minute, is the benefits. But before I do, like I said, this will probably be one of the more technical presentations we do, unfortunately. But it will help you get some numbers that you can actually use in a practical way. So we'll move along pretty quick. American College of Sports Medicine is kind of the gold standard. Whatever they recommend, everybody else kind of follows suit. They've been around for over 50 years. And everybody who's anybody in the world of sports medicine is really associated with this outfit in some way or another. Here's what they recommend with regard to exercise. 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity 5 days a week. And at least 2 days of resistive training. You're probably familiar with this stuff, right? So 30 minutes, so 150 minutes a week of moderate level activity. And we talked last time, we said one way to kind of identify whether or not your activity level was moderate was by...
You can talk while you do it.
Talk while you do it. But
I can do anything to talk.
But you can't sing. Does that really resonate with anybody? But you can't sing. Do you have a better way of identifying?
No. I mean, that's an easy way to...
That's what Mike always told me.
He said if you can talk but you can't sing, or whistle. For men, I think they like whistle better.
There is like an hour, 3 days a week, as good as 30 minutes, 5 days a week in y'all's
No, unfortunately, it's something that your body has to experience routinely. So, kind of weighting everything at the front of the week gives you an awful lot of days toward the end of the week where you're not experiencing that. So your body doesn't have the
Every
opportunity
other
to
day.
adapt.
We did
Every other
Monday,
day's great.
Wednesday, Friday, an hour.
Yeah.
Compared to doing Monday through Friday.
Well,
I
here's
want
the
to get
next
up at 5:30 every friggin' morning.
Or-
I like to go.
There
Seriously.
you go. Or
January.
but you got to increase the intensity.
Okay.
So you can do 30 minutes 3 days a week
Oh, okay.
if you're working out at a higher intensity.
There you go.
And so we're going to talk about about intensity levels here in a minute.
Yeah, the moderate in intensity is a real deal.
Yeah, that's the sticker. How do you know how hard to work
Yeah,
out?
exactly.
All right, we're going to talk about that. That's the technical piece, but I think it's the piece that will benefit you the most today too. So, am I your way?
No, Derek, not to interrupt. Can you tell, because a lot of machines you're on now, you can tell your heart rate. Is that a good way of measuring it?
That's exactly what we're
Okay, perfect.
That's
what I
exactly
need
what
to
we're
know.
Okay, so that's the ACSM recommendations. 150 minutes a week over 5 days, or 90 minutes a week over 3 days. The difference is the intensity level. But if you ever gone to Tricia's class, you're doing an hour, and it's I don't know if there's a category above high intensity. You should win.
Yes, you are.
I'd rather hear that than, I went
Oh,
for
you
classes too. It was nothing. I barely sweat.
Well, that's
I'd rather
true.
not hear that.
There's not any talking in her class.
Yeah.
I know this.
And no singing. There's no singing at all.
Not at all.
Gary, you mentioned barriers to exercise last time, and I didn't know if we kind of addressed that sufficiently, so I went ahead and threw it in here again. Because when I look at it, there are basically 4 reasons that people don't exercise, and the number 1 reason people give is they don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
And really, for me, the time issue is really not. It's not about time. It's about priority. And because really, time isn't the issue. Prioritization is the issue. Because if it's important enough, generally you find a way to work it in there.
Absolutely.
And then generally, when you do studies, when we do surveys, when you ask people what the most important aspects of their lives are, prioritizing them, they always say spiritual, family, and health. But then if you kind of study their daily life, you generally reverse, Well, I don't say it's not reversed. Health isn't anywhere up there at the top. That's usually at the very bottom. They never get around to managing their health. So that's one thing. It's not time really. It's really an issue of prioritization. But one of the legitimate things that I hear a lot though is lack of knowledge or expertise. You know, I'm a healthcare professional, so this was kind of an eye-opener to me. But because I was athletic when I was young, and then I got into the health profession, it seems like I was just steeped in this kind of stuff all the time. But I forget that there are a lot of people that chose different paths in life, and they weren't exposed to a lot of the stuff that I got exposed to, you know, with regard to exercise and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, where to do it, how to do it. So I'm running into that now when we're doing this consulting stuff. I get a lot of calls. Like, you know, we started with the Education Credit Union. I get a lot of calls from people that just tell me simply, I want to start an exercise program, and I don't know where to begin. And I think Robin did a nice job with saying, you know, just grab your pair of tennis shoes, because just doing something is better than nothing. So that kind of leads us to the next thing, lack of equipment or facilities. Now, Trisha's been, it's good that she's here today, because that demonstrates very well that, you know, I go to her body combat class. Of course, that's on occasion. I don't frequent but it doesn't require anything. You know, I just show up in shorts and tennis shoes, and I know that there's a place that we have to meet, and there's music and things like that. But the bottom line is, it's just a lot of movement. You know, it's just a lot of intense movement, and so, you know, it just kind of underscores that it's great to have a lot of facilities, a lot of equipment and things like that, but that really can't be an excuse that you use for not engaging in some kind of physical activity. So, and then the final thing is lack of energy. And I hear this a lot, and I experience this a lot. At the end of the day, we get home and we're wiped out. A lot of times, though, I think what we are is we're mentally fatigued, because we've talked over and over again about how little we do physically during the day. You know, I think what we experience at the end of the day is really not a lot of physical fatigue. What we have is mental fatigue. And you remember that little quote that Robin had in her deal last time by Mari and Dadney? She said, the only remedy for mental fatigue is physical activity, and the only remedy for physical fatigue is sleep. And I really think that the problem is, you know, when you get home at the end of the day, you really kind of want to shut down and sit down, and then we never kind of restart after that. And when I've been fortunate enough to go ahead and make that decision, or my kids drag me out of my easy chair or something, and I've gone ahead and engaged in some kind of physical activity, you get a new, you know, you generally kind of get a kick in the pants, and you, I don't know if it's your metabolism that kind of gets you restarted, but you get a second wind. And you know, we've talked over and over about how eating late at night is bad for you. That's what I go home and I sit down and I never move again, and then I just want to eat. But if I'll get engaged in something, whether it's, you know, digging a hole, or, you know, working out in the yard, or doing something with my kids, then generally I'm spending a lot more calories and I'm not eating anything. So that's become kind of a goal of mine. At the end of the day, I come home, I sit for a minute and rest a minute, but then to try to get back up and get engaged in something. So those to me are kind of the biggest barriers to exercise. And I think probably the biggest drive, you know, the biggest point is the prioritization stuff. Is when it becomes important enough to us, value-wise, we generally move it to the top of the list. So what are the benefits of exercise? Because that's really what we want to kind of focus on. Increases your good cholesterol. All right? Decreases your bad cholesterol, or the fats you got circulating in your system. Decreases your blood pressure. Because if we're moving stuff out of your circulatory system, sugars and all kinds of things, then generally your blood pressure is going to go down. So it decreases your risk for high blood pressure. Decreases your resting heart rate. As your heart becomes stronger and able to, and more efficient, it's able to push that blood around your circulatory system with greater ease, so it doesn't have to work as hard. So your resting heart rate goes down. Improved blood glucose and insulin levels, so it decreases your risk for diabetes. Decreased percentage body fat, obviously, and that's what everybody's really focused on most of the time. And as a result, it decreases your risk for obesity, which decreases your risk for a host of other obesity-related diseases that we've talked about. And then it increases bone density, and so that's pretty important, especially for women of menopause age or older. That becomes increasingly important. So doing some kind of weight-bearing activity. Yes, Jim?
Is 70